Hello and welcome to the Career Change Diaries podcast with me, Alice Stapleton. And today I'm really pleased to be speaking to Laura Romanowski. Hi Laura, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you too. Laura is a career changer, obviously, not someone I worked with. She kindly reached out to me on LinkedIn when I was asking for career changers to come on and share their story. But Laura, you were a English teacher for 15 years before becoming a copywriter at a PR and digital content agency. And you've been there for 2 years now. So gotten stuck into your new career already. So first of all, I thought it was really interesting because now you are the third teacher that I've interviewed on this podcast, and completely unintentional and big coincidence. What do you think's going on in that world that means that a few teachers are looking to move on?
Oh my goodness. I think obviously there are some things that maybe are kind of common among teachers, like workload, for example. I think for me personally, it was when the COVID lockdown happened, I realised that there were other careers out there, I suppose. And I think that were flexible around family. I think because the COVID lockdown happened, and for example, my husband was in a professional job. He used to go to the office 5 days a week. And it was very much like, well, if he's in the office 5 days a week, we've got 2 young children. I needed a job. Really, teaching was the only job pre-COVID that you could have that flexibility with a family in the fact that you had the holidays. So I've been with my husband since I was 18, and it was, and when I went into teaching at 22. So I very much thought, future family, future-proof us as a couple. I'll go into teaching. And, for 15 years or so, I did really love it. But I think when the lockdown happened and my husband then could work from home more, it kind of it was a seed that was planted for me that was, okay, I have to be on site every time I work. So I was part-time from having my children. And it was kind of like, it showed me that there was a different arrangement out there, that if I could have a job that took me out of the home, but I could also work from home as well, which you can't as a teacher, it meant that I thought the two of us could kind of be more flexible around childcare, around bringing up our children, in a way that they didn't need to go into wraparound care constantly, because we don't have, we live a little while away from both sets of family. So we've always been a sort of little island on our own, having to sort of manage work and family. And I think, so that was a big one for me logistically. But I also think, certainly since COVID, there has been a deterioration, I think, of some of behaviour in the classroom. That's certainly my experience. And it became, for me, a bit of a deal breaker when I wasn't enjoying the classroom experience, because that was the thing that I loved so much about teaching. And as soon as I stopped enjoying that, it made the marking and the planning and the working out of hours really, really difficult for me to justify. I just think that resentment built up, and it was time for a shift. And I think seeing my husband working from home and, seeing that was a possibility for me as well, or thinking that could be, that kind of paved the way for me exploring other options.
Yeah. So it sounds like it all just kind of mounted up in a way, sort of started small, and then COVID opened your eyes to.
It did, because I think any teacher will probably agree with me that you feel very institutionalized in a lovely way, in the sense that it's a vocation, it's something you're very passionate about and dedicated to, and it's a way of life more than a job, because you have to build your entire personal life around what you're teaching the next morning or the next day, the children's exams that you're marking ready for them to prepare them for their mocks or their real exams, and all the paperwork that goes in. And I think, like for me, it was something that I didn't mind doing at all, certainly before I had children. But I do think there's something shifted for me inside when I had my own kids, in the sense that I wasn't as devoted to the children in front of me in the way that maybe I needed to be. So it was a slow process of a few years, really,
slow burn,
and a few different things kind of contributing to that final decision to leave.
Yeah. Well, you've got to be really dedicated. When I see what the teachers at my son's school do, I mean, they're there before 8 o'clock, and I'm picking him up at 7:30 sometimes, an after school club, and the same teacher's still there. My God.
Yeah.
That's dedication. You've got to really enjoy it and be really into it. But they just seem to really love it. And that's obviously why they're there, and they've done it their whole careers. But I can imagine if then you start to get a niggle, being expected to do all of that and it not really be sitting that well with you, that's a lot to be dealing with, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, go on.
Well, no, I was just going to ask, how long were those niggles there for? In hindsight, how long do you think you felt something was not right? And
it's super tough, isn't it, to sort of think on it. I think so. To sort of backtrack a little bit in my career, I got my first teaching job in 2008. I was 22, 23. And I stayed at that school for 13 years. I was really, really happy there. And I had an amazing team who I'm still in touch with. And many of them are still teaching at that school because it's an exceptional school community, and they're really happy there. But as I said, when I had my children, and it was a sort of half an hour drive, which isn't very much, particularly really, but it did feel like, with us not having family nearby as well, I felt very much like I'm going kind of away from them. They're really little. And I thought, if I apply to a different school nearby, then there is that kind of cutting that commute time down. I can be there if I need to be. So I applied for a secondary school. Actually, I did some of my teacher training there. So it felt like a nice full circle for me. And I moved there, knowing that something wasn't right and I needed change, but not really necessarily knowing what that change had to be. And I think when you are a teacher and you've done all that training and all that time, you think, and I couldn't just leave teaching altogether without trying another school first and just seeing if maybe I just needed a change of school and a change of setting. So I went to a different school, and then I would say from then, maybe it was a couple of years. It was 2 years between starting and leaving there. So I would say something wasn't right, but I wasn't sure what it was. So I tried changing schools first, and then I left altogether. I was really lucky in both the schools I had permanent contracts at, because I had amazing teammates, wonderful senior managers, really, really great core team. So I was, really, really supported. But so it very much was my decision. It wasn't like I felt any kind of, because I know it happens in schools, it happens in any workplace, but I was lucky in that way. I had a very, very supportive team who I admired and respected so much.
It makes it a bit.
It was really great.
So you decide at this second school that, okay, done with teaching. How did you go about deciding what you wanted to do instead?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. When you've made a sort of a decision inside that you need a change and you need to move out, you think, well, what can I do? Like, it's really, really daunting. And I remember sort of seeing colleagues who were teaching but had like a side hustle. So I knew people who were like personal trainers, on their day off, and who were going to grow that business. Or I knew people who had like an Etsy shop where they were crafting. And I kind of like, I was like, oh. But for me, I was very much, once I'd made the decision to be a teacher, when after I graduated uni, actually, but that's another story. I was fixed on that, and I was extremely proud to be a teacher. And like I said earlier, it was my vocation; it was my whole life. So, it was. I didn't have another vocation, another rather a hobby or something that I could turn into something. I did a bit of Amdram. I read books. I had my girls. Like, there were loads of things I did. I was a busy person, but nothing was like jumping out at me as a career choice. So one of the things I did was I joined a Facebook group called Exit the Classroom and Thrive. And it's got, sadly, hundreds of thousands of members. And it was founded by these two former teachers who just started this group up a few years ago to just kind of try and coach people, help people to leave the profession if they wanted to. And that was where I sort of started to sort of read the posts that people were posting. Sometimes you find these little nuggets that apply to you. And I think I would search the group for things like English teacher to see what English teachers went on to. A lot of teachers go into civil service. It pays well, it's got really good benefits and so on. So I did think about, do I go into a civil service role? But then I found copywriting. I found a teacher who said, I write for a living and I love it. And I write this and that and the other. And it was, it struck a chord. I think this is something I can do, because I've always loved writing. I've always loved reading. That's why it kind of, the stars aligned and I became a teacher, because those things I've always loved. So it was like, okay, can I make a go of this? So I actually signed up for a copywriting diploma. And it was online. So I had an online tutor. It was self-paced, which is lucky because I was working full time and so on.
You're still working at this point?
Oh yeah, because that was the thing. Like, I know we'll get onto it, but financially, I couldn't just be like, I'm done. I had to have a plan. So I did it, and also I think with copywriting, people who don't know, copywriting is just writing words for. You can do copy for almost anything you see on TV is done by a copywriter. You've got adverts, you've got press releases for PR, which is what I've ended up doing. And I had no idea really what area of copywriting I would fly in. So I did this diploma because it was like you had to do a bit of email marketing. There would be writing an advert for a product. There were loads of different types. And it meant then I had this kind of portfolio that I was building of writing that I'd done, that was, graded by a teacher, a tutor, and I had feedback and so on that I could build in. And it just gave me a flavour as well of what it would be like to be a copywriter. So that was it. The first.
So it's a good way just to try it out. Did you feel like you were just trying it out at that point, or do you think you've already semi-committed in your mind?
No, like I hadn't committed or anything. Like there was no way I was going to have my notice in before I really knew it was the right thing for me. Yeah. So it felt like a really nice thing to do for me. I think when you're a working mum, you don't do very much for yourself. So it felt very much like my little side project for a while. And I really enjoyed it. And then I was like, okay, I think it was probably around Christmas or January. It was 2023, this is. And I was like, I'm going to apply for a job. I'm going to actually have a go at writing an application. So I found this brilliant looking role for it was a copywriting role for a creative agency in Leeds, where I live. I did all my due diligence. I, absolutely rinsed the website. I did loads of Googling, found out loads of stuff, and I really put everything into this application letter. Anyway, I had this email from their creative director, and he was like, not sure if you're quite ready for the job that we're advertising for, but what about a chat? How about let's just have a Teams call? So we had this.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing because I had no clue. I had no contacts. I had no idea really what creative advertising was, or marketing, or PR for that matter. Because as a teacher, you just sort of don't really need to know that stuff.
It's probably such a whole different world.
Completely,
right?
100%. And so that phone call, that Teams call was really the Kickstarter for me, because he gave me he wrote an email afterwards with a kind of rundown of podcasts to listen to, books to read. And he said to me, have you heard of School of Thought? If you haven't heard of it, Google it, apply, it could change your life. And yeah, so this is incredible. There's an incredible creative program called School of Thought. And it's a 12-week program with 12 creatives. I mean, I was like, I'm not a creative. I'm a teacher. I'm a mum. I'm not anybody. So anyway,
not anybody. Wow.
At that point, I was like, I'm like a complete interloper. Like, there's no way. Anyway, I applied, and the application was sort of advert based. So you had to sort of show your ideas, really. It's about ideas. And essentially the course, what it is, it's a competition. So the winner of the competition wins a trip to Cannes Lions, which is an incredible creative advertising showcase in France every year. But what we had to do was, there were 12 agencies, all based in Leeds and one in Huddersfield at the time. Every Monday, the creative director would give us a brief. So it might be create a radio script for Haribo was one of them. And then you have 2 or 3 days to just like get your ideas out there. Think, well, who am I talking to? Like, what do they need to know? Like, what am I going to say about this product? What am I going to do to get them to want to buy it? Anyway, Thursday, I'd actually go to the agency office in Leeds and pitch. So I'd be standing up in front of, a panel from an agency of incredible creatives, who are just the top of their game, and be like, hello, I'm a teacher, and these are my ideas for this week. And I'd pitch, and oh my God, I loved it so much. It was amazing. And it was, again, I was teaching, so I had to get all my lessons planned over the weekend so that I could get this brief on a Monday and spend Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday night kind of getting my ideas down, getting a pitch ready. And then on the Thursday,
with 2 kids too, at this point.
Yeah. And then I'd go into Leeds to these incredible offices, these gorgeous, buildings in Leeds with these unbelievable facilities, lovely toilets, which sounds really stupid. Most of the time as a teacher, you're just in the disabled loo off the corridor, and there's kids queuing outside. Anyway, little things like that. I was like, ooh, this is just like a different world. It was a different world. And obviously the creatives that I was working alongside were mostly a lot younger than me, all kind of creative advertising graduates, or PR graduates, or marketing graduates, or young people in their early careers. And we were just a team. I got loads out of that experience of working alongside them. It didn't feel like a competition. And of course, we had an incredible mentor called Julian, who is a creative copywriter, one of the most incredible wordsmiths, and really passionate about advertising. And he really steered me. And because of course a lot of these young people on the course with me were in agencies or in a role where they had creative people to bounce ideas off. I remember I would be in like my sort of English department office and I'd be like, I've got this idea, and I'd be, bouncing it off other teachers, which was great, and my husband, but kind of not the same as, people who were within that industry already and really had people to help them hone their ideas. So it very much felt like, by the end, it felt like I was one of them, but it took me that 12 weeks to find my feet and understand the jargon. There was so many acronyms that I didn't know that I found out through that process. And I saw into 12 different agencies and I was able to see this other world opening up. It was amazing.
Yeah. And at that point, were you still experimenting, or do you think you'd got to a point then when you were like, oh, actually, yeah, do you think I want to do this?
I handed in my notice at my permanent teaching role after the first week of that creative program.
Okay.
I think I was just so sure in that moment that I had this amazing skill set that was almost, like made for a role within an agency, in the sense that agencies, you have different clients. So it's like you might have a pet client, you might have a sport client, you might have a travel client. It's a bit like teaching in that sense, because I'd have year 7, then I'd have year 9, then I'd have year 11, then I'd go to year 10. And it's very much, it spoke to me as somebody used to juggling different audiences and juggling different, types of task, I suppose. So I kind of knew that there'd be an agency out there for me. But I left without anything to go to. So that was daunting. It wasn't a given that I was going to get something out of School of Thought. It was more, it gave me the confidence. And I was building a portfolio as well of ideas that I could use with my copywriting diploma, evidence, I suppose, of my skills in that area. But yeah, then I had to graft to get a job.
Well, just at that point, I suppose a little bit before you handed your notice in, any concerns at that point, or was it just kind of like, you know what, this needs to be done and I'll make it work?
Yeah, I think I was at the point where I was more concerned about not doing it than doing it. And it's kind of really difficult to explain, but I was in a position where I knew we had saved quite hard, my husband and I, while I was earning well, to enable it to happen. So financially, I knew we had a buffer.
How far, or how long had you been saving? Because obviously then you'd had that way back when.
I mean, without wanting to go too far in, we have, my husband works for, an American engineering company, so we have shares. So every year we do have some savings that we kind of can use from that. And it was very much like, well, we don't want to spend that to begin with. But also we were just really frugal for probably about 6 months, 9 months.
Okay. So not like years and years.
No. And I think for us as well, like, again, I mean, for anybody listening who might be in a similar position and thinking, can I take the leap? We knew, like, our mortgage, for example, was fixed for another couple of years. And we thought, again, it's now or never, because once that goes up, we can't really then not have me in work. So yeah, I mean, it took some wrangling and some working out, but we kind of knew we would be okay. And at the end of the day, my own fulfillment and happiness had to come first in that moment, in that time, because I owed that to Mark, my husband, and my children, to show them that, Mummy was unhappy in her career and Mummy did something about it. I wanted
rather
to,
than just sit in it. And
but I mean, I think it's a bit like any big decision you make in your life, whether that's a personal one or a career one. I think you wrangle with a lot of emotion, and I was quite angry for a while in that summer, really. Well, no, maybe not that summer, maybe more over the winter before I did School of Thought, because I was like, I'm a massive believer in mums in the classroom, and I just didn't want to feel like I had to leave the classroom, because I want mums in my daughter's classroom, and I want, but it just felt like it wasn't compatible really anymore as a career with who I wanted to be as a mum. So I was kind of wrangling with it for a while and feeling quite cross about the situation, before that kind of idea of a copywriter came in. And then I just became really excited about what I could be and what I could do. And that, again, you have to think there's a lot of feelings of failure as well that I had to deal with, that sense of 15 years in this career at the top of my game. I was a really good teacher, and I was a bit resentful and cross, and I felt a little bit like I'd failed because I couldn't carry on. So there was an element of that to deal with. And I think...
Why do you think that feels or felt like a failure as opposed to just a simple...
Yeah, I think like, like you wrangle, don't you, with all sorts of different emotions. Right. And I just think that was a big one for a while, because I think when you've trained and you've spent a long time building a reputation and a raft of experience, it felt like I was just going to be sort of chucking it all away for something else. And obviously you've got other friends, colleagues who are carrying on and who are taking that baton and running with it. And I was sort of backing away from that. And it felt like, at times I was like, I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. But like I just said earlier, like I had to just do what I needed to do and put myself first. And like you say, reframe it as not a failure, but more of an opportunity to try something new and to shift gears, And I think as a teacher, you think there's only one way, and it's a very linear career. But the exciting thing about where I am now is I can ping off in so many directions. It's daunting, but it's exciting. And I think at the end of the day, I am really lucky because I've always got teaching. I could do some supply. And actually I did some supply in that transition to my new career, where I worked for about 6 months part-time in a local high school. And it was a wonderful experience. I loved it. And it was a lovely way to end on a high, if you like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so key, isn't it? Is when you're struggling with that mindset of, it's a waste or whatever, giving something up. It's always there. You can always go back to it if what you try next isn't quite right. All that experience is there. And so interesting that you had a concern around like your transferable skill set, but by the sounds of it, hugely transferable. And on paper, you might not make that connection. How does a teacher fit with the creative industry and copywriting? But it sounds like there's so many skills that happen to be transferable. I think sometimes people feel like it's a magic equation that they need to find, but sometimes it's okay, well, choose what you want to do, and then you realize that you've got loads of transferable skills in there somewhere. Which definitely sounds like the case for you. So you hand your notice in on the back of, okay, well, we've got these savings. You can go back to teaching. You're doing some supply work anyway. So what's the next step then after you handed your notice
Yeah,
in?
so we're still in 2023. I started the creative program in the April. I handed my notice in the April, and then I left in the July. I obviously had the summer with my girls, my husband, just kind of reeling a little bit from it all, because it had been such an intense few months, and just had
having a rest, I imagine.
and knowing that I had that salary right through to the 31st of August. And then it was like the girls went back to school, and it was like September, and I was like, now what? So by this point, I had joined LinkedIn, and the copywriter that supported me on my journey through School of Thought, he posted on LinkedIn a really lovely kind of cheerleader post about me. I was really touched and taken aback, but he knew I had something to offer, and he wanted to get me out there in his circles so that people hopefully could give me a shot. And from that, I actually ended up securing 2 internships in the October and November. Meanwhile, I was doing little bits of freelance, which I'd picked up through contacts on LinkedIn. And
creative work.
Yeah, so I'd done. Yeah, so I'd managed to just a couple of little tidbits, that were kind of needed urgently, and I could sort of help out with. And then I did these internships. One was paid for 2 weeks, and one was not paid. The first one was with an advertising group called McCann, and it was just incredible to work with such an amazing team. I was just so in awe of them. They were amazing. They really were. But then I did the second internship, and I was like, okay, now I'm home. This is amazing. I just loved it. It was the PR agency where I am now. They had me for 2 weeks, and I just loved it so much. And I just felt really like I could really offer something. I could really help out with what they were doing. And like I wasn't just like this annoying intern that didn't really know what she was doing. I felt like, okay, I really loved it. And I think they felt similar, in the sense that they then asked me back for 3 weeks to cover their copywriters break over Christmas. They invited me to their Christmas do. I was like, I don't want to leave. I loved it so much. And then it was January time. I thought, okay, this isn't going to happen. I'm going to have to get some money in now. So that's when I started supply. And I literally signed up for a supply contract until the end of, I think it was April at this point, so 3 months. And that same week, this agency got back to me and said, Laura, we really want you to come back, but for 3 months, 3 days a week. And I was like, that's amazing. So I said to the school, I was like, can I do 2 days a week with you and then 3 days at the agency? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. So I did Monday and Friday at this school. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was in Leeds at the offices of the PR agency. I was also tutoring three boys from the local high school. So I had quite a busy few weeks, months.
Yeah.
And in terms of, financially, I had probably a little bit more coming in than I'd had in a long time. It was great. And then, as I say, when the supply contract finished, it just so happened that they were like, Laura, we want to keep you forever. Come and work for us full time. And it was like, yeah, it was, yeah. And I've been there now, so just over 2 years, and I love it. And I think what's really interesting now is my role's evolved so much. Like there's me and another copywriter, but I'm now doing sort of social content. I'm doing design. I've pitched to clients and won work, as part of that pitching team. I'm really doing lots of different things. I'm not just copywriting.
Yeah. And
so yeah.
Are they quite a small agency? Is that why you're doing so many different things?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with being in a smaller agency. Like I can sort of, I think by default you're sort of involved in a lot of the day to day, and yeah, like just sort of being able to just saying yes to things and taking a new challenge and sort of having a go and learning from everyone who's done it a million times before, but trying to kind of hone my skill set and maybe alter it so that it sort of fits that new career, really.
Yeah. And are there any other skills from your teaching career that you can see have been super helpful in what you do now?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny, some of the things I really miss about teaching are things like standing up in front of people and doing a little performance. It sounds really silly, but I'm so used to standing in front of a group of people all day, and just I missed that so much. So I've really enjoyed the opportunity the last couple of months, really, to pitch, to actually or to kind of contribute to client meetings and give my take on something, or that's been a really lovely thing to discover. This kind of, I can satisfy that that kind of pitch instinct, I suppose, in that way. I mean, I think there's something lovely about talking to willing audiences as well, in a way that you don't get.
Yeah, probably a bit different to teaching, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved it. I loved being in the classroom. I loved the banter with the students and how you get to know them. And I mean, I really, really miss that. And obviously there's nothing that's going to satisfy that side of things, but that performance side I'm kind of doing a little bit more of, which is nice. But I just think, like, the ability to manage a lot of stuff, like, I'm someone who's quite calm under pressure mostly. You can just pile things on my plate and I can just find a way of dealing with them. I think that's something that teachers can do really well. We just find a way of getting things done.
Well, I can imagine teaching's quite spur of the moment, and things just happen. So that ability just to, need to adapt and respond.
Yeah. 100%. That's really something that I think I bring to the table, and I think attention to detail as well. I think being able to proofreading, for example, sounds like a really minor thing, but I do think having marked thousands and thousands of essays, and I know what to look for. I know how a narrative needs to sort of fall in a way that's compelling, and I know what can be cut. I know what can be added. I spot the rogue full stops or the rogue comma or the wrong apostrophe. Like, it's like a kind of a teacher, especially in a humanities or English teacher's sort of specialism, is the ability to sort of home in on those kind of tiny details. So that's been a nice skill to apply, especially when we're sending out reports or documents for clients, and just being that last person to just give everything a skim and a check. Yeah.
And the creativity. I mean, I can make an assumption that, as a teacher, you've got to be quite creative, in that you've obviously got the curriculum and it's all right, how do I bring this to life and make it interesting and that sort of thing. And I think you said earlier, you originally were like, well, I'm not a creative person. You didn't sort of identify as a creative. Where are you at with that now?
I think, like, it's more of a sort of, now that I'm not a teacher, I'm sort of more things, like it's a funny way to explain it. You sort of see the teaching as such an umbrella term, but now I'm like, I'm copywriting, I'm proofreading, I'm pitching, I'm designing, I'm creating social content. There's like a full kind of like list or raft of different skills that I'm using every day, kind of in tandem with each other. When I did School of Thought, and I had to stand up every week on a Thursday and pitch, Back in teaching days, I called them PowerPoints, but now I'm like, no, it's a deck, apparently. Stuff like that, having to learn. But no, I'd have a slide in my pitch deck, the first slide, and it just said, Laura, mummy, teacher, and then I'd put creative with a question mark. And that was my first slide. And everybody in the competition was like, Laura, you've got to take that question mark away. Like, you have to take it away. And I was like, I can't take it away until I've got a job, because it felt to me like I was just playing at being creative, or a creative at that point. But I did gradually make the question mark smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I did this post on LinkedIn, which sounds really silly in hindsight, but I remember kind of explaining this context once I was employed, and I could take that question mark away and say, I've left my teaching job. I have transitioned into a new career, and this is me now. And that felt like a really lovely sort of, I don't know, full stop really on that part of my journey, really.
Yeah. From question mark to full stop.
Yeah, I know. And it just sort of shows, doesn't it, that kind of copywriter's humor about punctuation and word choice. But language is such an important part,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So something that I have wanted to bring up was, I've definitely had clients where they've expressed an interest in copywriting, or, any career that does involve that writing. And they've expressed concerns around the impact of AI in that world. So with your agency, what impact have you seen, if anything yet, in terms of using AI in that world?
I think it's really difficult I couldn't comment. I can only comment really broadly on this, in the sense that personally, I think we need to just ride the wave, and we just need to accept its existence and use it to our benefit. There's definitely a lot out there. ChatGPT is just everywhere. Everyone's using it for everything. I think people who know how ChatGPT expresses itself are aware when something is written that way. And I think, certainly, you can see a lot over on LinkedIn of people bringing this to our attention, but also for me, I think the tide is starting to turn to, we want human voices, we want human storytelling. And I think certainly brands, I think, will start to see, if not already, the power and the importance of having a human copywriter. I think it's great for shortcutting. It's great for potentially grammar checking, or, kind of giving you the bare bones of something that you want to flesh out. But I do think there are obviously going to be industries that are using it a lot more for copywriting. But I do think the risk is very real of turning everything into a very samey, boring drivel. So, it's hard to know the impact it's having really on copywriting jobs, because I do genuinely think that marketing teams, PR teams value writers, and they know how important good writing is. I know from my experience in PR that if you sent a press release to a journalist that was clearly written by AI, they're going to just spit it right back at you. Just delete it and not even engage with it. Some journalists are using AI filters to sift out AI. I don't quite know how they work. I think they're looking at syntax, sentence structure. They're looking at certain words that are sort of used overly much by ChatGPT. But I think, I think good writers will be okay in the longer term, I guess. But it's definitely a worry and a challenge.
Yeah. It sort of makes me think of, like stock photos. It's a sort of similar vibe, isn't it? That, anyone can get some random stock photo to stick with their piece. But if you want something that reflects what you're trying to say, then it probably needs to be a bit more bespoke and probably
absolutely
taken for the job.
I mean, I do. It's funny with the ChatGPT because I can see as a teacher that would have been really bloody handy to have it.
Yeah,
But I was thinking things like, if I'm creating a starter activity for year 10, it's Lord of the Flies. I need 10 questions about chapter 1. I can just ask ChatGPT to just find me 10 quotes from chapter 1 with a gap and then list the words at the bottom for the kids to fill in. That would have been, 3 minutes, 2 minutes? Whereas I used to have to sit with the book open, copy it out, type it out, and the next one, type it out. I mean, that was 20 minutes just to create one 5-minute exercise, and I think, gosh.
Yeah, but I can't help. I know, but I can't help but think, the beauty of your brain activity where you were doing that I know obviously it takes you longer, but in terms of how, and obviously we're going on a slight tangent here, but how our brains are going to develop if we're using AI to do those sorts of tasks instead of creating those, I don't know, pathways in our brain. I don't know. Yeah.
It is interesting. I think about it from my children's point of view, and I think about things like AI overviews. And back in the day when iPads were first introduced in the school I was at for a long time, we would ask kids to research something, and just by typing the topic in, and then you bring up the Britannica website or a reputable source, and then you read through and you search and you find what you need to find. Now with AI overviews, you can type an actual question in and it brings up the answer. And I think whilst that's great, again, like you, I'm thinking, well, how does that teach a student those skimming and scanning techniques, how to sift through the relevant info? And they're just taking it as read, and that AI overview may not have been scraped from a completely truthful source, and therefore you're kind of scraping incorrect information.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I've definitely asked it something and I've thought, I don't think that's right. And I've looked it up myself and it's not right. So, anyway. Okay. So it sounds like as a career, that world, yes, they're using it to enhance maybe what they're doing, but it doesn't sound like it's taken over already, and that sounds like the value of the human mind is still what's most important. So that's good to hear. I've thought of the question that I've got previously, and it was really just whether anyone in your current agency or along the way has ever commented on what they themselves valued from your previous profession, or whether anyone ever raised doubts about the transition. I'm just quite interested to hear whether you had any feedback along the way as to why maybe they wanted you, or why others had expressed concerns along the way, or anything like that.
I think I've been very lucky in that I've found that the agency had a need for a copywriter at that time, and I happened to sort of fit the bill. But I think most feedback has obviously been about my people skills, being able to stay calm under pressure, the things that we've mentioned already. But there's obviously that knowledge gap when it comes to the industry itself. So for me, the biggest learning curve has been how to write a press release that's actually going to get pick up from a journalist, and having to learn the mechanics of writing in a way that is bespoke for the PR industry. So I've had a lot to learn on that front. I've obviously had a lot of latent skills from teaching that are there that are kind of prime and ready to use, but the knowledge gaps of learning how to write within a new industry, that's been maybe the biggest learning curve. And the feedback I've had the most over the 2 years has been about kind of making sure I kind of read voraciously, the news to see how the articles are presented. Headline writing, for example. I mean, writing headlines is a skill in itself that I've had to kind of contend with. And the way that our agency is sort of working at the moment in terms of our new business, for example, and I've had to do quite a lot of social media writing and content creating for social. So that's been another learning curve as somebody who never really used social in my previous life. I've now had to learn dimensions of photographs, to post on Instagram and Facebook, or what a reel needs to look like, or how long it should be, and all of that sort of
It keeps
thing.
me. I need to
Yeah.
read all that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to change all the time as well. But I think the main feedback I've had is in those gaps in knowledge within the field itself. And obviously, and also I think, a big one for me will always be, or at the moment certainly, is that commercial acumen. Like, I've never had to be commercial in my job before. I've never had to think about the numbers whatsoever, apart from obviously the data in terms of KPIs and students and their expected progress versus their real, achievement, attainment grades and things. I've never had to go, okay, here's a budget, here's how much we can spend on this project before we're in the negative, or, this is what we're going to price our service at. I've never had to do that. So that's a new kind of realm, really.
Yeah. But the agency obviously thought, well, yeah, there's the knowledge gap there, but I guess they just knew that you were capable of filling that and that it can be filled, right?
Yeah, like I think that's where it just feels really lovely to have found a group of people that appreciate, those skills I do have and understand me as a human and want me there as part of the team. I always say this, I've said this in every job I've ever had. I've always felt like the team I'm in is a bit like a jigsaw, and you all have a unique shape, but you all fit together. And I feel like I've found a job again where I'm part of that jigsaw puzzle. And my piece looks a bit different to everyone else's, but we still fit. And I think that analogy is kind of, I've been super lucky in the teams I've worked with. And, I like being part of a real team. I think as a teacher, you're very much on your own a lot of the time. It's an interesting dynamic, really, because you are part of a team with your classes, but you're also not. You're us, and there's a bit of us and them. And then obviously with your team, your staff team, you get 10 minutes in the office maybe once a day. Most of the time you're on your own in your classroom. So it's been very lovely to go to work and have that kind of office environment and that team around me to bounce off and support me, and I in turn can support them. And it does feel like a really nice transition. I'm a bit like the mum in the office, kind of just trying to kind of keep an eye on everyone and make sure everyone's okay. And it's felt like quite a natural role for me to fill.
Well, it sounds like they could see how you would fit. They like the shape of your puzzle piece.
Yeah, I know, how cheesy.
And they could see how it would fit with their team. Okay. I mean, listening to you today and thinking about what has helped the most with this transition, I'm hearing internships, LinkedIn, a little bit of network. Would you agree with that? And what else would you say has really made the biggest difference along the way?
I think, there's everybody's situation is so unique, but I do think, I mean, LinkedIn is a tool that really can be useful. I think that Facebook group initially for me, the teaching Facebook group about sort of how to leave the classroom, was a real eye opener as well. And it was just kind of, trying to just use those tools to find out more about what is out there. And I'm kind of a believer of, well, if they've done it, maybe I could too. And it was almost like that cheesy sort of adage of, if you can't see it, you can't dream it, or you can't be it. And so for me, I had to see what was out there. That I didn't even know that this was a possibility sort of 3 or 4 years ago. Because yes, it's sort of just trying to see what you can maybe apply your skill set to. And then, I mean, obviously as a side note, my personal situation is I've got an extremely supportive partner. My husband could support me financially, emotionally. He was there for the kids when I couldn't be, when I was doing my creative program, when I was, interning and all those things. So I do think having that person who's got your back is also something that helped me through. And I do feel for those who are the main breadwinner, who don't have that financial safety net, that can be, it's a really daunting place to be. So I have to be real and thankful about that, because I don't think I could have done it. Potentially, we couldn't have taken the knock to my pay. Certainly, I'd have had to make a few other changes. I think to our lifestyle and so on, if I didn't have him. So it was a few things, all kind of a big kind of mix of things, really.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had those cheerleaders that you found along the way, just that guy putting that post out about you led to those internships, that led to this current job. Sounds like it was super helpful just to find those people who could see your potential and just needed to give you that opportunity. What would you say you found the best thing about changing, and what about the hardest thing?
I mean, the best thing is time. I use my time differently now. Like this weekend, yesterday, we climbed 2 Wainwrights in the Lake District. On a Sunday, the last Sunday of half term, that would have never happened. Like, I would have just been like, I can't use my final Sunday of half term to go walking in the Lake District. I'd need to plan. I'd need to get everything ready for Monday, So there's no Sunday night blues anymore, because I found something I love doing, and I am excited to open my laptop on a Monday morning and get stuck in.
How refreshing for you,
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I just think as a family, although I'm working full time, I can walk my daughter to school. I'm here when my eldest gets back off the bus from high school. I couldn't have that wouldn't have happened as a teacher. Like, I would have been waving other people's children off, but I wouldn't have been at home for my own. And I think for me, that's the biggest thing. Like, the way that I can work now is so flexible, that I can be there for them in a way that I wasn't as a teacher. My husband used to joke, at the end of a half-term break, I'll see you in 6 weeks. It's just so all or nothing. And I was happy to do it. But it was when I saw that there was something else out there that could be mine, that's when I took that leap. And we're sort of enjoying that now, that flexibility of, we're both working full time, but we've got more time than even as a teacher when I was part-time. You're still working on your days off as a teacher. You're still working in your evenings, regardless of how many days in the week you work. Or I was anyway. So I would say that's it.
And how do you manage the school holidays now then, if you're both working?
We have a spreadsheet. It's just chunking down into sort of small chunks, getting through week by week. And also, like, I'm really lucky. This year, at my agency, we've just introduced unlimited holiday. So it means there's that flexibility. Like, I would never take every single school holiday day off. And my children are now 9 and 12, so I can work at home with them at home too. It's completely fine. And we just manage.
Make it work.
Yeah, we just make it work. And I don't feel like I need the holidays in the same way that I did. Like, I don't have that real kind of exhaustion, that sort of, yeah, like real kind of that downtime where you just sort of flop and you really, I just felt like almost like a zombie in the holidays, because I would be thinking about what was to come. I'd be trying to be a mum. It was, yeah, like I feel that juggle isn't really there in the same way as it was. I used to get a lot of migraines as a teacher. I used to get probably around 18 a year, 16 to 18 a year. But they would rarely happen at school. They would mainly be whenever I relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that's changed as well since moving out of teaching. Like, I think I haven't had one since October. I mean, to go 3-4 months without a migraine was unheard of.
Oh, wow. Well, there's
So,
that book, The Body, what is it? The Body Holds the Score, or Body Knows the Score, or something. Yeah. It's funny how these health issues, sometimes it just, we can't explain. And
no.
then, yeah, change the circumstances or the situation. And then,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's it. I mean, I do take, I medicate as well, so it might be a bit of that kind of in the background. I take something every day to stop them, but it's like, okay, I'm at the point where maybe I could try weaning myself off, and then potentially I won't get them anymore. Like, it's that, there's, like I say, everybody's situation, I think, is sort of impacted by lots of different
Yeah. Yeah.
things.
Cool.
So, and that was another thing in my sort of kind of list of red flags. Really, was I'm getting a lot of these migraines. I'm clearly quite stressed here.
Right.
Um,
Okay. And then what's been the hardest?
um, I guess I wouldn't say the hard. Well, obviously we've talked a little bit about the finances. Like, that's been tough as a family. But it's
So
not.
with that, sorry. So I think you originally said it was like a 20K difference. So
Yeah.
per month after tax, you still feel that?
Yeah, I
Right.
do, but I think I'm very philosophical about it, and I know that this is the lowest it will ever be. So I know that with the experience I now have in my new field, it is only going to go up. So we're
Yeah.
very much through the hardest bit, really, on that front. But I think the other hard thing has been, which I knew about, I knew I'd have to do, but it's that proving yourself again. When you start a new role, and you've got to you can't just sort of say, oh, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, and this. You've got to actually live and breathe that, and prove to everyone that that's how you are and who you are. So that has been nice, in the sense that, to a great degree, the pressure's kind of off me in that way, because I've just got to experience as much as I can, learn as much as I can.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting to the point with my current role where it's like I'm diversifying a lot more, and I've got a bit more of a hybrid role, which more suits the skills I've got. But yeah,
Takes time, doesn't it?
it
But
does.
I always see these posts on Instagram where it's kind of, around change. It's kind of just be willing to suck. Like, you won't be good at it straight away. It's almost a mindset thing of, okay, well, yeah, there's going to be stuff to learn, and I'm not going to be the best
Yeah,
straight
definitely.
away, and you're going to feel like a
Yeah.
bit of a novice. But
Mm.
actually, maybe that's an exciting place to be that sponge, and to be challenged, and to have so much to learn. Yeah, it can feel like a very vulnerable place to be in, but as I say, in a way, it's quite a kind of growth
Yeah.
area to be
I think
in.
one of the ways that I've dealt with that feeling internally has been, no one can take away what I've achieved. Like, I have
Mm-hmm.
got this 15, 16 years of teaching behind me, and it's a massive achievement. And although it may not apply directly to what I'm doing now, it's still there as this huge achievement. And I'm so proud of it, and I look back and I think, I really did that, you know. And so on the days where I'm full of self-doubt and I'm full of imposter syndrome, as many of us are, I think, no, Laura, like you've got this, you've come through worse, you've done worse, you've experienced harder things than this. And it always helps me through that kind of, you know, tricky meeting or like daunting prospect, or that piece of writing where I'm staring at a blank screen thinking, where do I start? You know, you just have to sort of, I try and use that previous career as a kind of sort of behind me, holding me up almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well,
yeah, I mean, God, if you could be in a classroom with God knows how many unruly children, I think you can probably do most things.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything more daunting than that, to be honest. Okay, and just lastly, you know, any other sort of pearls of wisdom or little bits of advice you would give other career changers from your experience?
Yeah, I think obviously look what's out there. So do your research, see what's out there. I think it was almost for me, if I just stayed where I was and didn't see what else was there, I would have just carried on that path forever. So it was having the confidence and the impetus to look. Listen to people as well. Listen to those closest to you. Like my husband, my family, friends were saying, is it time to think about something else, Laura? Like teaching isn't making you happy anymore. But I probably should have listened to them sooner, because I kind of needed to come to the decision myself. I don't take kindly to being nagged, as people will tell you, but I do think, like, listen to what they're saying and what they're picking up on. And yeah, that was a contributing factor for me. And also, like, it doesn't have to be overnight. Like, take it step by step, you know, join a Facebook group, start a course. Little things can kind of add up. There was something on that Exit the Classroom Facebook group, was a Pip Pony video, which was done by the two founders of the group, and it was how to calculate your bottom line, how to work out how much you can afford to lose if you're talking a big income drop. And that was really powerful for me. It helped me to see where my bottom line was. It wasn't actually as bad as I thought.
Yeah, it's usually the case. Yeah.
And also, just like, it's really tough, but if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to do it for you? If not now, when? If not you, who, you know, who's going to do it? So that was, for me, I had to dig deep and just be like, I'm going to be brave. It felt like, is this brave or is this stupid? It was kind of like, I don't know which one. Yeah, it felt like a big risk. But I knew that the alternative was worse for me. I needed to do it. And even if it meant I was doing something, not copywriting, but not teaching, I think it just needed to happen. I needed a change. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It's been fascinating. Oh, you're so welcome. And I really appreciate you getting in touch. And it's been such a great journey to share. Yeah. And I hope it inspires other people, just to help them realize that it's possible. That's why I started this podcast. Just want people to know that it's possible, and there's people like you doing it. And as you've just said, if you can do it, then why can't other people do it?
Yeah.
It's just finding a way to make it work. You know, a lot of it is financial logistics.
I think that's the bottom line. Yeah.
And also then knowing what you want to do. That's the next step.
There's a few things in play, a bit chicken and egg, I suppose. So which comes first?
And that's why, you know, we can feel stuck for so long, because it's working out which to do first, working out the priorities and making those sort of micro decisions. Thank you, Laura. Lovely to talk to you, and all the best with your role. And it'd be nice to stay in touch. And you have said that if anyone wants to follow up with you, they can track you down on LinkedIn and do it that way. And yeah, thanks again, and speak to you soon.
Oh, thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.